What are you doing? I told you not to fucking subscribe. Don't subscribe. Don't subscribe to my channel. I don't want any subscriptions to this fucking channel. I told you if I have any subscriptions, if I have no subscriptions, that's a good thing. It means that no one's allowed to punch down. I can't be criticized by any other channel because I have no subscribers. You can like me, you can share me, you can do whatever you want to fucking do, but do not subscribe. Okay, I told you not to subscribe. All my stuff's going to be up on Twitter. I have an Instagram account. I have a fucking Instagram account. So just don't sub me, okay? Don't sub me. Right. So, SJW, social justice warriors. Where does SJW come from? Where is it going? Why do we have it? Why do we need it? Do we fucking need it? Here's the thing. Social justice, the idea, the word, the terminology, where does this come from? Why do we even have this thing in our world? What can we do about it? Well, what is social justice? What's the idea? What's the philosophy behind social justice? Something like social justice used to be called a lynch mob. Yeah, it's based on activism. And activism is always dependent upon the audience. Okay, so in any kind of action, you always have the people who are involved, the community who you are using to then address another community who you feel has either grieved you or that has some potential chance of changing that grievance. Now, that's kind of interesting when it comes to stuff like social justice because their grievances are so disparate, such defocused kind of ideas like changing sexism, changing racism, things that can't actually be changed on a ground level, that when you're actually holding up traffic to change racism, yes, it does raise awareness. I can never argue that it doesn't raise awareness being caught in traffic because you can't get through because someone's complaining about racism. Now, that's fair enough. Your awareness has been raised by that. However, there's nothing you can do about it in that moment. There's no inaction you can do to actually change that. It's not like you can reach into your pocket and pull out your wallet and give money to prevent that thing from happening right there and then. It's one of those things. So activism is always dependent upon the community in which the activism is addressing, like what is the activity for, who are you going to change that, who are you going to change with that action. And also too, you need some people backing it up. So what's interesting about this idea is that in social justice, this lynch mob kind of idea, their actions are justified by the community or what they feel to be the community who they represent or who that supports them. Now, this is really easy to feel supported these days because the echo chamber, which is the internet, means that basically because the internet is so vast, it's such a large area, there's so many different users, there's so many different groups, there's always someone you can find to identify with any particular point of view. It doesn't matter how unusual your point of view is, doesn't matter whether you think you're a wolf or a dragon or you identify as an attack helicopter, whatever you want to do. You can always find someone who you can identify with, and that group mentality gives you this like psychological support basis to then go out and feel you can enact this in the name of your community. And that can be a really good thing. I mean, I don't want to be completely critical here. That means that people who once felt alone now feel empowered. However, some of those people who were once alone needed treatment, they needed help for some of those things. They were alone for a reason, because we have culture, we have civilization, we have certain morals and ethics that divide some people from others. Yeah, you can't argue really that a serial killer has just a communal problem. It's just a social problem in a sense that you can learn to live with that by protesting it in the street. That individual's behavior is not going to be corrected by a fucking gender clause, okay? That individual's behavior is only going to be corrected through a variety of psychological methods, mostly including incarceration or separation from the rest of the community. Anyway, so this is going on a bit of a rant. But the point being that the internet, because it's such a large user base on something like Twitter or Tumblr, you can always find a group of people who would agree with you on pretty much anything, okay? So once you've got a lynch mob together, there's a real problem because that lynch mob then starts acting. And particularly in the cases of SJWs, and Occupy Wall Street also falls into this category, In fact, many protests fall into this category if they're not very specific, if they're not very morally or ideologically driven in the sense that they have an exact outcome, they have an exact purpose. As I said before, quite often there's not an exact purpose to a lot of protests, but particularly when it comes to the Occupy movement and a lot of social justice stuff, there's no cohesive moral element that's keeping the whole group together. So violence and mob mentality is really easy to slip into. The difference between a crowd of SJWs and a crowd of footballers is probably just a couple of years of university.
No peace, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace.
Shows how much I know about America. I always thought they elected their presidents via a democratic vote. But this Donald Trump hombre must have taken power by staging an armed coup. Because those students were chanting no justice, no peace. And you'd have to be mentally fucking retarded to march in the streets chanting shit like that if he legitimately won an election.
Once you actually get a group of people together who don't have that social cohesion to keep them together, you'll find that it's really easy for it to descend into violence. And we've seen this recently with the elections in the US. And it was really interesting, of course, to see people complaining about Donald Trump not accepting the election results. And now you've got a whole bunch of uni kids running around screaming that they just elected Hitler. Really, really interesting idea about how quickly the tables can turn. But I'm not here to criticize anybody. They're allowed to have their opinion, of course. That's what free speech stands for in America. But it is a little bit interesting to my way of thinking that without this cohesiveness to the group, without leadership, so to speak, without a definite ideology, it's really easy for things like social justice to slip into mob mentality. And once you've got a group of people behind you who back you up, you feel justified in doing all sorts of things, becoming aggressive, not interacting with people in a peaceful manner. That you know, what I mean is not respecting them in the same way as you expect to be respected. So this has been a long spiel. What I'm trying to get to is that groups, any large group dynamics, operate in almost exactly the same way, whether you're talking about a football crowd, whether you're talking about a protest march, whether you're talking about a group of infants, or in some cases a herd of animals. People, animals, we all react as a group once we're in a large group, and we feel justified to act as a group, as a whole unit, instead of as individuals who have ideas and morals and culture behind us and things driving our individual mentalities, our individual philosophies. Once those get disrupted and you're taken into the group, then it's really easy to fall into the group violence and to fall into the group mentality. This is one of the core dangers, I believe, in social justice. This is one of the real philosophical problems with social justice, is that in forming this group mentality, you're then justified in forming a lynch mob. And whatever that lynch mob decides is today's flavour, whatever they want to string a rope up, that's what will cop it that particular day. That's what's going to actually be attacked on that particular day, just because the group can then turn around and attack anything, including its own members. I mean, so many feminists have been banned from feminist talks, and so many people who identified as left is now not left enough, and so they're banned from speaking at some of these events as well. So it's really interesting how this mentality drives itself further, drives that pendulum further in the swing, and with the group behind it, it can become actually quite dangerous. So as I said, YouTube, do what you got to do, but don't fucking sub me. Whatever you do, I want to remain a small channel so that I cannot get punched down upon. Let's use the left tactics against themselves. I hate talking about left and right, so let's not do that. Okay, let's say the regressives can't punch down on me because I'm a small channel, but you're allowed to like me, you're allowed to comment. Let's start a conversation about this stuff, and that's it. I'll see you in the next one. No, wait. You'll see me